this generation is the future of Iran. I mean, how much Islamic regime going to force them, going to suppress them? How much is it possible? Look at the history. It have never worked, and it's not going to work to Iran. It's not, especially not with these people, especially not with these women, not with this man, not with these people. And that's the final destination. We're going to win.
This is a Roqe special edition, The Uprising 1 year later. Let's go to Germany right now. And Forouq Canaani, she's a PhD researcher in social sustainability and a women's rights activist. She has been fighting for the rights of women refugees and LGBTQ people for years. She's also been actively involved in the battle for change in Iran since the Green Movement of 2009 and has been an outspoken critic of the Islamic Republic. And right now, Forouq Canaani joins me from Munich, Germany. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for your invitation.
So nice to have you as part of this special. Thank you for making the time. Let me start with the obvious question and the general question I'm asking everybody today. What are you feeling 1 year later? And what lessons do you think we have learned as a global Iranian community in the year after the killing of Mahsa Amini?
Oh, that's a very good question. Actually, about my feelings, last year, I think at the exact time, I was totally hopeless. I was feeling that it's not going to be any change any soon because what I was seeing was that alliance between like the European countries and the Islamic regime. And also, I just saw this like behavior of people who were kind of, in my opinion, accepting what's going on in the country. And I was just worried and I was wondering if they know their rights, if they know who they are, such a great nation, and so on. And then, bam, a couple days later, well, the kind of revolutionary uprising started, and that was something that I can say right now. I feel hope. I feel hopeful, and I think that now people have seen what does it bring to just be together and just to stand for their rights and how I'm feeling about it and what kind of lessons we've learned that you just mentioned. It's pretty much obvious. Maybe it sounds like a bit cliche, but actually that's true. I think what we have learned is the value of unity,
Hmm.
how it is, how important it is just to be together, just to stand for each other. And the most importantly, something that I'm still trying to promote is to understand it's totally okay if we don't think like each other. It's totally normal that we disagree in so many stuff. The most important thing is that we agree on principles. We should agree that Iran must be taken back, must be free, and we are a nation who deserve better. We need secularity. We need no regime. We need no Islamic Republic. We don't want them, and they must go. They're the principles that we have to know that we cannot just disagree on them.
Hmm.
They are the stuff that we have to agree, and the rest should be just get solved through the discussions that we actually maybe have to each other, and then to understand that the differences are beautiful. Maybe that's so difficult to understand at the very beginning. What does it mean?
Let
But
me pick.
that's the diversity. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, let me pick up on a couple of things that you've said there, and start with the last thing you said about unity. You're not the first person to talk about it, and one would think, I would say, especially in the first few months after the killing of Mahsa Amini last year, we certainly learned how powerful unity could be, and yet it does feel like one could make the case that for the last 6 months, in the second half of this past year, um, it's been almost an exercise in disunity when it comes to the opposition, or in the diaspora at least. So how do we make sense of that in terms of learning lessons about unity and disunity?
But we're still learning. We didn't have so much revolutions. The last one was the Islamic Revolution who brought us to this situation. Now there are like the so-called last generation who are still practicing the same, I would say, methods to just, just to make the revolution work. And we have like this new generation, including the Generation Z, who actually totally disagree with what's going on there. They are thinking differently, and their approach towards this uprising was totally different, even from my generation. And that's beautiful. What I think is actually even the opposition are learning. Who were there? Most of them were just like social activists. Some of them were even not political. They just are direct to this reality, and now they just have to face to it, and it's not easy. It's a huge responsibility, and it's not that I'm defending someone. I'm just seeing it through my speciality, how it is, and that's why I think it's pretty much difficult not to see the situation black or white, but actually there is a spectrum between it.
Yeah,
People make mistakes, and it's absolutely fine unless it's a non-reversible one. Then that could be like something that you say, well, that would, but we're still not at that point.
I got
We're
you.
still seeing that diaspora, especially opposition, are trying to get united. And I think that is the only thing that we should get focused on it and just promote it as much as possible.
The other thing you said in the answer to that first question is you said this time last year you were feeling somewhat disheartened, and one of the reasons was the ties between what you perceived in European countries and European institutions and politicians and the current regime in Iran. You are there in the heart of Europe, a place where there was so much activism in support of freedom in Iran. Of course, there was that massive Berlin rally, and yet 1 year later, there is a feeling that we're very much alone as Iranians around the world, and that Europe in particular did not show up when it came to supporting the uprising. I mean, I'm talking about institutionally, I'm talking about the governments, and for example, putting the IRGC on the terrorist list the way many had hoped. What are your thoughts on what we've learned now, a year later, about Europe in relation to this current Iranian regime?
Well, that's a good point, but it has like not enough reality in it. I mean, realistic point of view is that what could Europe do? Are we expecting, I mean, standing with us means that we expected to just bomb them, to just put them all in, I don't know, embargo list or something. We have talked everything with them and we got answers. It's kind of not possible. There are rules like international relation rules that they have to obey. Otherwise, Islamic Republic gonna sue them, and it's a high possibility that the Islamic Republic wins when it comes to international courts. And that's what they keep telling us. And I am just sometimes surprised that I see that people actually ignore what they give us as answer and just don't take it serious. They said it's not possible. Just right now, put, I mean, it's possible. They can put like IRGC on terrorists, but they are going to sue them. And that's going to be like, again, in courts, and they're going to lose, and they're going to pay a lot of money because they probably have to the regime because, well, they did a wrong thing against this IRGC terrorists. So these are processes that we have to know that that's how it is working. And if we want more, we should just look at ourselves. They want to know when we are really rising for our rights. They said, we are with you. We also have enough of this regime. We also have enough of their terror, of their threats and everything. But we need to see the final move. Then we are at your side. I mean, we're already at your side. That's what they claim at least. But we need to see that you get rid of them. And then you see how rapidly and swiftly we're going to be at your side, and we're going to accept that, okay, now the Islamic regime is gone, and now Iran is freed, and it's going to be our new friend. I think it's not what we want to hear because we have different perception, especially considering what the Islamic Republic have done before the Islamic, I mean, okay, it was not Islamic Republic back to this, it was like the Islamic Revolution. And those who participated in it back to the days, how they got alliances, how they get ties and everything. But now this is how it works. Probably they are very much afraid of the problems that they are right now struggling with. Like they already have a
Yeah,
war
yeah.
in Europe and they have like the refugee crisis. That's what they are probably try to prevent further.
I think that's I appreciate that you're giving nuanced and thoughtful responses when there may be an appetite for people to just hear, fuck Europe. Why isn't more happening? But I appreciate the approach you're taking and trying to really make sense of of things. Let me ask you before I ask a final question. Let me ask you just in terms of putting on your hat as a women's rights activist and somebody who's been active, particularly with women and refugees. You know, this uprising has been very much characterized as a revolution led by women, and much has been said in terms of the role of women in the last 12 months in Iran. I almost wonder sometimes if it does a disservice to how much women have the role that women in Iran have played in the previous uprisings leading up to this moment as well over the last 20 years, especially. Do you feel like this has been a watershed moment for women in Iran?
I think it was, but the very important thing which I really want to emphasize is the role of men. It's not that only the women of Iran know their rights and they want to just stand for their rights. In Afghanistan, it happened several times, but it didn't go anywhere because the men didn't actually accompany. But here we had this privilege, I would like to say, is that we had men who recognize our rights and they knew that equality is the key of a society who's going to sustain in the best possible way. And that's fabulous because the Islamic regime totally did its propaganda against that. I mean, 40 more than 44 years, we just heard totally different stuff like men are the main population and women better get home and just never leave the home and be the moms and whatever that the super conservative Islamistics wants them to be. And it's fabulous. I mean, I think we shouldn't actually forget about the rule of the Pahlavis kingdom. They were the first that brought this idea into Iran. They took the chance of the modernity in the Middle East, especially after getting the influence from Turkey and Ataturk back to the days, and they just brought it in Iran. And it was a brave idea. Do you know about which time we are talking about which era? Women were just like covering themselves totally, and they're Reza Shah came and said, okay, that's it. We are not having it anymore. And I'm sure it was, I mean, it was a very radical decision. But when you know about the details, about the historical details and the social situation of the day of those days, then you can understand why he decided to take such a radical decision with force. And well, that was not beautiful. I cannot say that I like force. No one can claim such a thing. It's crazy, I know, but we are benefiting nowadays from that. And that's cool. I mean, it's never, as I just mentioned, white or black is always a spectrum. Something may look super bad, but generations after, you say, maybe that very bad thing brought up something to this generation. We know our rights. We know about liberty. We know about women's rights. We were the country who women got the voting right, election rights before Switzerland. And I think that's beautiful. And I think, yes, Iran's women, this generation who's educated, who's aware of, who's, it's right, the generation who uses social media and cannot be stopped by any regime or any propaganda or any force. This generation is the future of Iran. I mean, how much Islamic regime going to force them, going to suppress them? How much is it possible? Look at the history. It have never worked and it's not going to work to Iran. It's not, especially not with these people, especially not with these women, not with this man, not with these people. And that's the final destination. We're going to win.
Well,
That's
I was
maybe
gonna,
not tomorrow, but we're going to win.
you know, my final question that I've been asking people as we go through all these guests on this special edition is whether they're how they're feeling about the weeks and months ahead. But I feel like throughout this conversation with you, there's definitely an energy that suggests you're optimistic. You're very positive about the last year. Naysayers or people complaining that the movement has died down or all of that notwithstanding, it sounds like you are, would it be fair to say, optimistic about where things are headed in the near future?
I would say I'm realistic because, well, revolution is not easy. We we get people shot. We got young, beautiful people who got blind, and this is a social fear. It's not easy. And still, we kind of carried it on for 1 year. Even the people who weren't in the streets all the time, they're complaining themselves why we are not in the streets. So I think the atmosphere is still revolutionary. And people know that it's going to come up again. And the Islamic regime knows it too. Look how they're now so called securing everything against the upcoming days because they think they're going to be uprising
Yeah.
again. But even if it doesn't happen exactly at 16th of September, universities are going to be open pretty soon, schools. And that's going to be something. The first mistake that Islamic regime probably going to do, going to cost them a lot. And that's what we're waiting for and we are hoping for because I think people of Iran know better than anyone else. The freedom can be achieved only by them. Not, I mean, none of us can do anything by being their voices, reflecting what they want and work for them. But the main job has to be done by themselves, and that's give me hope because I can see even the diaspora is getting together again. They're just like trying to. I mean, of course, there is still problems, but it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. It is okay. We are learning. We're discussing. We're talking. We are learning. That's the most important thing. We're not stopped. And so are the people in Iran. So I think that's the realistic point of view. It's not, I'm not claiming that it's going to happen next week or next month, but it goes on. It's going to be just something to be continued. And eventually we can see that we're going to win. Islamic regime cannot, it's so unsustainable what they're doing. It's so crazy. They just cannot go anywhere with this method and with what they are with so much blood on their hands. So I think not optimistic, but just realistic point of view can be that that's gonna go on, maybe not right away, but anyway, pretty soon.
Well, Kanani, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you so much for your invitation. It's also my pleasure to be your guest anytime.
Bye bye.